Hello humans, Master Dinnerflex here, bringing you the low quality content you deserve. And today, Konami has showed us that they are also capable of giving us low quality content. So, I didn't even want to do a live reaction, because usually when someone announces the ban list, they want to spoil it right away, and normally, you just skip what they say and go to the link and kind of pretend like you didn't see anything or not absorb what you saw. But the moment I absorbed what I saw, I noticed the only banned card was Zodiac Barrage. And at that moment, regardless of reading anything else, I knew this ban list was going to be absolutely worthless. And man, I could not have been more right. Because normally, there's like a level of sarcasm when you say, oh, this ban list doesn't matter, oh, this deck doesn't matter. There is a level of sarcasm behind it. This is not one of those cases. So let me just go through the ban list. Banned. Literally the problem card of the format, Barrage. Okay, sure. Limited. Eva. Mew Mew. Meow Meow Mew. Tinky. Okay. I'll go over all these hits in a moment. Semi-limited. Joker literally doesn't mean anything. Emergency teleport. I said in my engine video about the new set, including like Punk, that if they literally didn't move teleport up this list, it means it is never going to come back, because Punk is one of the decks that was literally designed around the existence of teleport. Like, all the cards are meant to exist with teleport in the game. So if you don't even move it for that, then just keep this at 1 or 0 till the end of time. Never even bother moving it again. But that being said, this should have happened years ago. Emergency teleport needed to not be on the ban list for a while, but it just kept staying there, and it was really annoying. So the only interesting thing is Danger Nessie. We're actually getting a danger back, which, to be fair, of all the dangers we could get back that were limited, this is the weakest one. Because the thing about Jackalope and Tsuchinoko, Jackalope is stronger than Nessie because unlike Nessie, it can actually be normal summoned, which I'll explain in a moment. But the actual real reason is Nessie searches a card, whereas Jackalope just puts a card on the field. So with Nessie, you always need to play like an actual sizable danger engine, where with Jackalope, you need a very tiny danger engine, and with Tsuchinoko, you do not need a danger engine, you just need however many of the snack you want to play. So that's like the order of power. It starts from Nessie to weakness, to Jackalope, then to Tsuchinoko, because while all of them effectively have the same effect, they can, all of them, and increased power is based on how little you need to commit to a danger engine to use them, whereas Tsuchinoko, literally no danger engine is needed. Jackalope, you need a few dangers, and with Nessie, that number just increases. So that's why they were getting this one back first. And finally, who the fuck cares? Holy shit. So let's go over how incredibly pointless the actual hits were. Zodiac Barrage, it's a Saki one-of. Oh man, I couldn't have thought of a way more powerful Saki one-of played in literally every single deck that needed a hit more. I'm thinking, like, maybe a continuous trap card that turned like a third of the entire game off, while at the same time protecting itself from most of the outs to itself. I couldn't think of another Saki one-of like that. Oh well, let's just ban Barrage. Eva, I'm going to be totally honest, there is a Drytron combo that makes this hit totally irrelevant. We just don't do it because it was at 2 and 3. Like, M7 exists, if you don't know. So, a lot of the time, sometimes Beatrice just foolishes in the second Eva. So, from now on, if Beatrice would just foolish the second Eva, instead of making Beatrice, you make M7, which is a machine, by the way. A light machine. You might be able to ritual summon with that. And you'll just grab back the Eva, so when you toss it, you get to use its effect again. which means this hit was almost entirely irrelevant. So this definitely, of all the hits on this list, maybe arguably Barrage, this was the most do-nothing hit on the list, because even when people were talking about Orange Light and Eva, they weren't talking about limiting it. You needed to ban this card to actually remove its function from the deck, but you didn't ban it. Like, that's so irrelevant. I don't understand why. Now, two hits that actually have impact are Meow Meow and Tinky, but I have a huge problem with these hits and the fact that these hit the consistency, but not really. So, let's go over Meow Meow, because this is probably, of all the hits on this list, the only one that has a sizable impact, like an actual noticeable impact on the deck. And that is the fact that when we were wanting this limited, this being limited means prank kids can't just casually do this until one of them sticks, which was kind of the problem with it being at multiples to begin with, because even if you stop the first line, if they get to their next turn and start the line again, and you don't have a stop, it means stopping the first line never meant anything. It just, like, took up time in the round, really. But it being at 1 would stop that. However, this feels like backpedaling, because the reason this isn't actually a consistency hit is because this being at 1 wouldn't matter if hand traps weren't all over the place in the meta. So, originally, this would have had an impact, because that means if you hand trap the first prank kid nonsense, that really put them far behind, and it was a struggle to try to get back in the game. But you printed Crossout Designator. I'm going to show you something after I'm done talking about this list, about how, like, they did so little with this list. And then Tinky, I'm going to be totally honest, the only reason this is the starter for Tri-Brigade is because it's the most resistant to hand trap starter. Like, but then again, they released Crossout Designator, so, like, all these hits would have been impactful if you didn't, like, it feels like a spit in the face, because you gave us a format where we're going to have a lot of counters to hand traps, while at the same time, you only gave us hits that would have major impact if all our hand traps stuck. I don't get it. Because if you're under the impression that Tinky is like one of the only starters for Tri-Brigade, it's not. It's just, like I said, it's the one that's most resistant to hand traps, because Rescue Cat exists. Tri-Brigade have their own version of Tinky, if you didn't know. They have their own version of Tinky. So the amount of starters hasn't changed in Tri-Brigade. It's just instead they replace the starters with different starters. And it doesn't matter if those starters are a little more fragile as much, because again, you printed fucking counters to the hand traps that would have made these hits matter. So literally, the only thing that is even remotely interesting about this ban list is Nessie coming back to 2, but I'm going to be totally honest, the only reason I even think they did this is because they got done with the ban list, looked at it, and said, wow, this is incredibly uninteresting. This is going to be abysmal and boring. Let's find one card to bring back that's at least shows it a little exciting by the very technical sense, and that was, I guess, Nessie. But, time to pull up my thoughts. First off, these getting unlimited or moving up in the world doesn't matter whatsoever. These should have... Literally the moment, like, Joker was at 1 and Iris was at 2, and the first event where you literally didn't even know pendulums were there, these could have went back to 3 and no one would have gave a shit. The thing about pendulums is it doesn't even matter how you hit pendulums. As long as Electromite is banned, there's a lot of pendulum monsters that just don't matter. As a matter of fact, there are pendulum monsters that don't matter right now with Electromite. I don't understand why they just don't like pendulums. I understand, like, it is a scary mechanic and a lot of people don't like it that much, but at the same time, like, There are a lot of people who really enjoy the pendulum mechanic, really enjoy how these decks plays. Like, a lot of pendulum decks are a lot more interactive than combo decks normally. Like, the only time we get really degenerate pendulum decks is when Electromite is in the game. So, I don't get this, but this is what I wanted to point out about how very, very little they tried with this ban list. Like, their idea of bringing cards back was so unbelievably tame. Because the truth is, they really didn't need to hit anything. Not because they didn't need to hit anything, but because we're getting Burst of Destiny and we're getting the 10s. So obviously, they couldn't really go that hard, otherwise it might really mess up things, and it might create a very unpredictable meta. But, like, Darkness Metal's still at 1, and no one cares. Dark Grepher was probably one of the worst limits of all time. Reasoning has no business being at 1. And yet, Mystic Mine is still at 3, a card no one likes. And the OCG finally decided to ban it just because it literally can only create a toxic environment and only create stall scenarios for tournaments. Yet this at 3 is fine. What? Really? Like, you couldn't have thought of any other thing to do with this ban list besides the near do-nothing thing that you did? I guess the only true impact this list had is they made Zodiac not an option for Tri-Brigade. And I'm not even joking for that. It means if you want to access Zoo in Tri-Brigade, a Tinky doesn't do it, and Barrage doesn't exist. So you just have to hard find a way to a Zoo monster. So I guess Tri-Brigade just no longer has access to Zoos. I guess that's the actual takeaway from this list. And Prank Kids now become more high roll because if they negate the hand trap, they get to do literally everything now, where now it's just Sackier. Now, like, Prank Kids is Sackier, and Tri-Brigade doesn't have Zeus anymore. That's the only change in this ban list. Like, nothing else matters. None of these other hits make anything. So anyways, back to this. Like, I didn't even mention, Mirage Stelio is still at 1. This card doesn't matter. The only time the movement of this card matters is from 0 to 1 or 1 to 0. Any other number, this card doesn't make a difference. Especially more now, because Mirage Stelio is now... the second and third Mirage Stelio is competing for a lot more extra deck slots than Salamangreat, to the point where I don't even know if people would actually play multiples of these. So I don't know why this is at 1, but this is what I wanted to point out with this ban list, and why I think it's kind of terrible. Not just because the hits didn't do anything, not just because they didn't try anything different, or try to move cards off that didn't need to be there, or put cards on that only have toxic interactions, but instead, like, all the hits are nullified by these 7 cards. Every single one of them. We are going into a format where we have 7 spells in the game that every single deck can play that punish a hand trap being used, in a format that already has trouble with going first being just far, far superior. I actually don't understand. Like, talents, if you get hand trapped, oh, just draw 2 cards and get to an extender. Oh, or you could draw a Crossout and Called By, which just straight up negate the hand trap. Like, this is going to be our format. We are probably going to see a lot of decks that just main deck 7 of these at the start of the format, until the point where we are playing so many different hand traps, or so many hand traps that most decks don't actually function, or we just stop playing, like, most hand traps. Like, that's an actual possibility at this point. Just because I actually think we're going into a format where activating a hand trap, one hand trap, won't do anything. That's the honest truth. I actually think that's what's going to happen. But yeah, that's my thing for the ban list. Probably the most boring ban list of all time. None of the hits made any major impact outside of, like, Try not having access to Zeus anymore. Yeah. Like, I can already think of multiple starters Try has that, like, kind of nullify the Tinky hit, and, yeah, it's just not a really great ban list. The most annoying part isn't the fact that it didn't do much, it's more the fact that it didn't do much, but in addition, it also didn't try to be cool. It didn't bring us back anything that was interesting. It didn't, like, hit anything that was secretly degenerate, like Mystic Mine or any kind of other nonsense people don't like in the game. No, they just, like, it felt like they had 30 minutes to work on it, and then they got it done as quick as possible with the most mundane hits possible, to the point where they probably don't do much of anything. But then they realized, oh wow, this ban list is incredibly boring, so they brought Nessie up a number. Yeah, that's the actual ban list. A do-nothing ban list, they realized was so boring, they brought Nessie back to 2. But yep, that's about it. Thank you all for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed this video, and hopefully you enjoy pretty much the exact same meta until Burst of Destiny. But yep, that's about it. Thank you all for watching, and remember, Master Dinner Flags will take your soul.